they can function different ways, but they often are what make a chart feel special. They can add a certain character to the chart. They break up some of the improvisation. They sort of help shape the energy flow. It can add a lot of drama to the chart. It can add a lot of playfulness, a lot of fun, and it's a chance to bring the whole band back together. Okay, hey Rangers! I hope you guys are doing well. Today is a very fun lecture for me because we get to just listen to some good music. So your assignment for this coming week is to write either an interlude or a shout chorus for your chart. So we'll talk about what they are a little bit. I've kind of already mentioned it when we were talking about the road maps, but so they are a written out section that has it stands on their own. So they have kind of a beginning, middle, and end. And the main and they're they can function different ways, but they often are what make a chart feel special. They can add a certain character to the chart. They break up some of the improvisation. They sort of help shape the energy flow. It can add a lot of drama to the chart. It can add a lot of playfulness, a lot of fun, and it's a chance to bring the whole band back together, especially for a shout chorus. So we'll listen to examples of these, and that'll be super fun, I think, and a way to sort of get some inspiration about what you might do with your either interlude or shout chorus. Now, every single chart for the purpose of this class has to have either an interlude or a shout chorus. In reality, not all charts have to have them, but it's sort of a good default setting to have in your mind as like sort of a standard part of when you go to write a chart. And then you can always decide not to use them. In fact, one example I'll play is a chart where I first wrote it and used to play it, and then we don't do it anymore when my band plays it. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So yeah, that we're going to be talking about interludes and shout choruses. And we'll also talk about the transition sections briefly. Although that is separate from an interlude or shout chorus, and your charts might also have transition sections. You're welcome to write them, but they don't count the same as an interlude or shout chorus for the purposes of this class. Like I said, when you go to play the chart, if you don't want to use your interlude or shout chorus, you don't have to. But for the purposes of this class, you have to write one. I'm also going to just let you all know, some of you have been asking me questions throughout the week, and I think you guys are really getting a lot out of that. So I really encourage you guys to, over the course of the week, be emailing me questions about the assignment, about your chart. I'm really very happy to give you all the input in the world. So please don't hesitate. I think the students who are asking lots of questions throughout the week are really getting something out of it. So I encourage you all to take advantage of that. That's what I am here for. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to listen to some examples of different things and talk about them a little bit. So the first example is, we're going to start with interlude sections. So an interlude section typically comes somewhere in the middle of the chart. Like I would say if there are two solos, it's probably going to happen in between the two solos. Um, or if there are three solos, I'm most likely going to put it in between the second and third solo. So an interlude typically is probably most often going to come before the last solo. And a fun thing about interludes, they can go with the form of the tune. They can go with the solo, solo changes or the same changes as the head. But interludes also don't have to. They can be drastically new material. Or they can be just a total variation, like a very different variation on material that has already been established. So you might drop the form of the tune, but take up, do something different in terms of, you might base your interlude off of some melodic material that was introduced, or it could just be a totally different section that just shapes the energy in a new way. So we'll listen to a couple. This first one, and we won't listen to all of these songs from beginning to end, but we'll listen to at least enough of them to get a sense of how they work. So this first one is a chart of mine called T-Shells. And it has an interlude that uses melodic ideas from the main melody of the tune. But in terms of the form, it's different. In terms of the harmony, it's different. It's just kind of a different play on that. And this is one where, on the recording and when my band used to play this song, we used to do the interlude live. Over the years, it's come to feel a little fussy for me. So it's a great example of one where now when we go to play the tune, I just tell the band up front, I said, don't play the interlude. We'll just do solos. But the interlude is still there in the chart in my book. And if I'm ever in the mood or whatever, we always could decide to do the interlude. So that's a really good example of, how sometimes it's better to have it written and then decide not to use it than to not write it and it not be an option. So anyway, this is T-Shells. We'll first listen to the main melody of the tune so you can hear how it goes. And then we'll listen to the interlude section. So here's T-Shells. Okay, so you get the idea. That's the tune. And then there's solos over the form of the tune. And then about halfway through comes the interlude. This is still the saxophone solo. and then we're into the trumpet solo. So you hear that section was kind of its own thing. It's related to the melodic content of the main melody, but it's kind of reharmonized and just redone. So that's an example of an interlude that kind of adds some variety, and just kind of, it can wake the audience up a little bit if you get lulled into the solos. Just having everybody come back for a minute, it's like, oh yeah, a little bit of surprise. We're dealing with expectation and surprise. Okay, the next tune I want to listen to for an example of an interlude is by Horace Silver. Now, Horace Silver is kind of, I think of as like the most definitive, greatest writer of interludes and shout choruses of anyone I can think of. So this is his tune called Señor Blues. And we'll listen to some of this, and we'll first listen to the main melody, and then we'll jump to the interlude section. So let's see. Let me jump a little further. Oh, so that's a little too on the nose. So anyway, it's kind of a minor blues-ish form, so here's. But they do an interlude in between solos. So here's from one of the solos, and it'll go into the interlude, and then it will come back to the next solo. So this is Hank Mobley. to Horace's piano solo. So that was just, one chorus, and it was just the horns and everybody just playing that rhythm over the form. But it breaks things up nicely, and it kind of brings everybody back together in a nice way. And just as a way to shape the mood. So it's another example of an interlude. Now the next type of section I want to talk about is shout choruses. So shout choruses typically come after the solos and before the outhead, or sometimes as part of the outhead. So for instance, a shout chorus might be over the full and a shout chorus will typically be over the form of the tune. Unlike an interlude where it might be over the form of the tune, but it also could be something out of left field. A shout chorus is typically going to be over the form of the tune, and it could be over a whole chorus. It could be over multiple choruses of the form, or it might even just be over half a chorus. So I'll start with some of mine, some of my shout choruses as examples. And I usually start with mine because, I'm able to answer questions about them. So that's why I show some of my own examples. I'm able to talk about them and remember what I was thinking. But I also start with them because I don't want to be following Horace Silver. So that's why I start with mine. So here's an example of a shout chorus on a blues I wrote. This is a tune called For the Youngins. And it's kind of a reharmonized blues in terms of the form, but the solos are just over 12-bar blues. And then, so for the shout chorus, I just did like one chorus of over that 12-bar form, but I reharmonized the shout chorus too. So it's a new reharmonization for the shout chorus. And then they go into playing the head out one time. So on the way in, you hear the head twice. On the way out, you have the shout chorus, and then you have the head. So it keeps it pretty tight, which for this, this was a studio recording. So that makes it nice. On a live gig, we might do things more. We have to negotiate it on the bandstand sometimes in terms of what we're feeling. Anyway, again, this just, it's a nice kind of surprise. It brings everybody back together. And it's pretty simple. One thing you'll notice about shout choruses that's maybe a little different from, say, like in big band writing, like a saxophone solo. A saxophone solo is what we tend to think of as like being very virtuosic and, a lot of fast lines. It might be something that you might hear in like a sax solo. Whereas a shout chorus, it's not going to necessarily be, it's going to be more something singable, most likely, or something melodic, something that just feels good, coming to bring everybody back together. Anyway, here's I'll first play the main tune of For the Youngins, and then I'll jump to the shout chorus. listened to that in a while. That's Antonio Hart on the alto. Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead a little ways. This is towards the end of the song. So we'll anyway, this is going to be the shout chorus one time, and then the out head one time, and then it's done. Piano solo trading. Okay, so very simple, but effective. You know, it's kind of a fun little quirk. Brings everybody back together. Catchy little thing. So this next one is another shout chorus of mine, and this is from a tune of mine called "Family Song," and it's kind of a slow bossa is the tune. So we don't often think of that as being the sort of tune for a shout chorus. But what I did is after solos, still staying on the form, I kind of wrote this section. And this tune, by the way, is an ABAC form. So at the end of the solos, over the AB, I wrote a new melody that's kind of the shout chorus. And then on the last AC, we're back to playing the main melody of the tune, although I have it harmonized differently in terms of what the horns are playing than how it was on the in-head. And then it goes into an ending. So we'll first listen to the main melody of this song so you know how it goes, and we'll kind of jump ahead. So this is Family Song. So this is just piano solo up front. Here comes the melody. Mike Mossman trumpet solo. Backgrounds. Okay, so it goes on that was the ending that we were at, but we don't have to listen to us. So anyway, that's an example of how your shout chorus, instead of me doing a shout chorus over the full A, B, A, C, and then doing the full head out of A, B, A, C, I just did the shout chorus on the A, B, and then did the head out on the A, C. And I rewrote the horns and the harmonies there for that last AC to make it different from how it was on the in head. So all of this is just adding some shape and variety, keeping the listener engaged. So now I want to listen to a few other examples of shout choruses from Horace Silver. First, here's from Filthy McNasty. This is a blues. And we've listened to it, I think, in the blues video, so it should seem familiar. And we might revisit it also for intros. But I want to listen to it right now just for great shout chorus. Just comes at the end of the tune after a lot of great blues soloing. And it's just the horns playing a cool, great catchy thing, brings everybody together before the outhead. And then they actually, for their ending, they basically play the same thing as the intro. So we'll listen to the beginning of this song, then we'll imagine a bunch of blues solos, and then we'll listen to the end. And Horace talks at the beginning of this. I'm going to skip over that for right now.
while we do a little thing we call Filthy McNasty.
Okay, so I'm going to jump now to towards the end so we can catch some of this shout chorus. Here's the last few minutes. I went a little too far. So it's the end of this awesome chorus piano solo. So you heard that that thing. Wow, it's weird singing with hearing myself with the headphones on. Anyway, you heard that shout chorus, and then it plays the head twice, and then it plays the intro again as an ending, and they all just hold on a nice chord at the end. So that's a great shout chorus. Here's one of my favorites. This is Sister Sadie by Horace Silver. And this is an AABA tune. And this actually has like 2 shout choruses before the outhead. So we'll first listen to the beginning of the tune, and then we'll jump to the end. All right. So I'm just going to jump towards the end. Let's see. Oh, was a little too close on it. Here's a little before. Okay, yeah, here's from end of chorus's solo. Second shout chorus. Nice. Okay. Where did it go? Here it is. Okay. One more Horace tune. He's just the best. This is a song called Moonrays, and this one's neat because we'll listen to it has a long form, this song. It's an AABA, and the B, and they're all kind of long sections, and the B section is basically the same as the A section, except it's up a fourth. But some beautiful vibes in this tune. But what's neat is he keeps that same form for the shout chorus. So it ends up being a pretty long composition. But the vibe is very different on the shout chorus, as you'll hear. So it's a nice way to bring in a whole kind of different mood. And then he comes back and I think they do, well, we'll hear it. I'm not sure if they do the full head out or just BA. But yeah, so anyway, this is Moonrays by Horace Silver. Notice how after that long form, they have that just that little bow bow, which just is a great send off and just changes the mood. So it's a really simple example of a transition. So that's something to think about, how when you get to the end of your form of your tune, how you get from that into your solos. And there's a lot of ways to do it, but that's a really slick way and just nice surprise and brings a lot of energy. Okay, so let me jump ahead to towards the end of this song. So we'll get some of the shout chorus. So here's Horace's solo. So they did, they did the shout chorus over the full form, but then for the outhead, they just took the bridge out. So it can be tricky getting the proportions right, especially when you have kind of an unconventional form length. That's a longer form. And this is a tune, by the way. In a lot of these tunes, you'll hear, if you ever hear the Mel Brown septet play, you'll hear a lot of these. That tune in particular is one they would do a lot, and it's great hearing the stuff live. I feel like that's how I really internalized a lot of this. I used to go and hear this band every Tuesday night at Jimmy Mac's years ago, at the old Jimmy Mac's, and it was so great hearing these what these sound like. So I know right now live music is not not really happening, but at some point, hopefully in the near future, we'll all have the opportunity to hear the Mel Brown Septet live. And I encourage you to take advantage of chances like that to get to hear this music played by great players in a live setting. It really gives you a sense of how it all fits together and how fun and special all of these interludes and shout choruses are. Okay, so this last type of section is one that I've sort of mentioned. It's called the transition section, and it's not required for this class, but it also would not count as instead of an interlude or shout chorus for this class, but you still might find it useful to write for your chart. Basically, it's something that, probably doesn't really stand on its own exactly, but its main job is to get you from whatever section you're in to the next section. And so a couple examples of those. Here's one of mine from a tune called One for Wendell. And this is a kind of an AABA tune, and then it has this section that sends us off into the solos, and the solos on this tune are just over a minor blues. And then this section comes back in between solos, this transition section. So it recurs a few times, but we'll just listen to the in-head, and then I'll point out where the transition section happens. So that happens in between solos, and it kind of brings everybody together. It kind of changes the energy and builds up to the solo. So it just is a fun quirk. Here's another example. This is probably one of the most famous transitions. This is from A Night in Tunisia. And some people would call this an interlude, but it really is a transition from or a send-off, kind of an extended send-off at the end of the form. So it's an AABA tune, and then they play this. So we'll just listen to the beginning of the song. It's fast enough. This is Art Blakey's recording, by the way. And I know I called it an interlude just then, but it's a transition. So anyway, that's some examples. Please let me know what questions you guys have, and I hope you all have a great week. I'm excited to hear where your charts go. Have fun.